The story of the road to Emmaus is well known. And it is well thought of by many people. Because I love how Luke introduces us to Cleopas. And then he says, and his friend. It's almost as Luke has written it in a way in which we are able to insert ourselves into the story. As we can imagine walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus, just several miles outside of the city. And the story is also very intriguing because it has so much irony in it. As readers, we know who is there with Cleopas and his friend. We know that it is Jesus. And it is ironic because the two who think they know what is happening do not even know at all about what has truly happened. And so there's this irony that they do not even know that Jesus is present with them. And in our world, I believe that there is an irony of connection. That for everyone who has a Facebook page or Twitter, kind of the theme is stay connected. That we are connected to every person through our cell phones, through the invention of the internet, and through media. Probably quite a few of you woke up this morning, grabbed your newspaper, turned on the TV to watch the news, see what was happening in Aurora, Colorado, what was happening in the Middle East, or what is happening here in our area. I imagine probably a couple of you got on Facebook this morning to see what was happening in the life of your friends. That all of this technology has made us feel as if we are connected to one another. You can pick up a cell phone and call a relative who lives 500-600 miles away. You can know what is happening in the life of all your friends on Facebook. You can know what's happening throughout all of the world. And so we feel connected to one another. But it's a false sense of connection. I love the story about these two teenagers. And they had texted one another nonstop. It was a little boy and a girl. And so they text each other, all hours of the day. And they finally were able to go on their first date. So he comes by and he picks her up. And they sit at the table. And they don't know how to talk to one another. Because all they have been doing is texting one another. I remember when I watched WALL-E for the first time. I don't know how many of you have seen WALL-E. It's a Disney movie. And these people are riding around in little carts, and they have this screen in front of them. And they don't look at one another to talk, but rather they talk into the screen. And as I turn 27 today, I can tell that I am a child of technology. That I have some good friends who are visiting me today from Aiken. And she expressed that the best way to get a hold of me is by texting me. Because it's the quick way. You don't really connect that much, but you just continue on. And I think this story about the disciples on the road to Emmaus has a lot to talk about our faults sense of connection. That we cannot be connected to God by just liking Him on our Facebook page, by just sending Him simple little tweets or texts, by being distant from Him but trying to remain connected enough without giving Him a whole lot of time. Because this morning, right before I came into worship, I saw on my phone that a bunch of people had wished me happy birthday on Facebook. But it would be a whole lot more meaningful for someone to call or even for someone to show up and talk. But connection requires time. More than a 140-letter tweet or a simple text message. Because when you are not fully connected with what is happening, you will become like Cleopas and his friend. Their faces were downcast, and they confessed, which I think is the heartbreaking part of this passage. That they said, we had hope. We had hoped. They had lost hope. And this was the day in which Jesus was resurrected, the day in which death had been conquered, and they confess, we have lost hope. We don't really believe what the women or what the disciples are saying, because we did not know. And so this stranger shows up, and he begins to reveal to them all of the scriptures and how it points to Jesus. And we always joked in seminary that we love the Apostle Luke, and we love his gospel, but we really are kind of, disappointed in him. Because how meaningful and awesome would it be if we actually included all of Jesus' words in that moment? Where we could begin to grasp what it means that Moses and everyone pointed to Jesus. And so they begin listening, and they recognized that the afternoon was going away, that it wasn't safe to travel, so they invite Jesus into their homes. And in the most intimate of settings, for friends, is sharing a meal, as we shared a meal last night at Taco Mamacita. Because it's in sharing meals that you share what's happening in your life. You share your struggles of the day. Somebody asked me one time, a couple years ago, what was my favorite childhood memory? And I say this to all the parents out there. I just blurted out. I didn't think about it. And in hindsight, I would have thought it would probably be going to Gamecock football games with my dad, having my mom drive me all around to different golf courses, all of the favorite memories that they made by going to Disney World or going on vacations or beaches, all of the gifts maybe they've given me, but the favorite childhood memory I had was sitting around my kitchen table with my mama, my daddy, and my older sister. Because they made us at least 4 days a week to stop and to sit and to take time to connect with one another. We shared what was happening in our day. We shared our struggles. We shared our joys. And we would sit there, and we would always finish with our devotion. And my dad or my mom or my sister or I would pray for each other. It takes time to connect with God, and it takes time to connect with one another. And this story is also beautiful because we catch a glimpse of what the resurrected Jesus looks like. Cleopas and his friend obviously knew Jesus, but for some reason they did not recognize him. And we know Jesus, but sometimes we do not recognize him. And we need the help of others to discern God's will and to help us to see that God is present with us. In that moment of the breaking of the bread, they realize this is God. This is Jesus here with us. And so our church is based on connecting. For taking time to connect with God and for taking time to connect with one another. Because God has given us the holy privilege, just as I reminded Brandon and Matthew today, remind all of us, that God has given us the holy privilege and the holy responsibility to help others see Jesus. Often we will think about a problem, and maybe this is because I'm a guy, but I won't ask anybody for any help. And I'll think about it, and then I will, call Christiana or talk with a friend, and immediately it becomes evident to me what needs to be done. It became evident to Cleopas and his friend that God was alive. And God will use each one of you to help others see that God is with them when they are walking on their own and they don't see God. And so I challenge you today to become connected with God and to become connected to His people here at church. Because if you are not connected, not only are you doing yourself a disservice, but you are preventing others from seeing God in their midst, the new dimension of the kingdom of heaven. That God uses us to help others see that God is present. So take the time to be connected. Take the time to be connected with God and with one another each and every day.